What's up, y'all? You know what day it is. It's cards and cake. We got cards, I got cake, and it's so great to see all of you. We got a special guest with us today. He is, in my opinion, an OG, and I say OG because Ziggy's been in the card collection and investment space since 2015, which seems like an eternity ago, especially if you're a comeback card investor like myself. What's up, David? What's up, other David? We're going to bring on Ziggy and talk a bit about his background, how he's utilizing Facebook groups, but also, if you don't know, Ziggy is really up to date with the different content creators in the space, whether it's YouTube, podcast, text, and he's absorbing so much information. So I want to pick his brain. I want us to really be able to grow as investors and collectors using his experience, using what he's learning. So let's bring him on. What's up, Dustin, aka Personal Finance Dad? What's up, Mike C? Let's see here. Ziggy. Oh, wait, different screen. You got cake too.
I got my cake. It's not quite as good as your cake. Mine's a nice sponge cake with some chocolate syrup, but I have my cake.
I got the RPAs of cake right here.
You do.
Look at that. Yeah. And I can't tell if my camera's really good, but it looks damn good on my screen.
It looked fake to me in prior weeks until you bit it, and I was like, holy moly, it's real cake.
Oh, yeah. I mean, trust me, this used to be my leg day when the gyms were open. So I'd hit leg day, I'd eat tuna and greens all day long so that the cake would taste extra sweet and delicious. What's up, Brandon? What's up, David again? Yeah, dude, we're making it a thing. Now that Ziggy, you brought cake on, now it's a thing.
Do you buy the cake or do you make that cake?
Like, I don't have time to make cake. Do you know how much time it takes to do this YouTube stuff? That would take me like
pretty amazing. You got a lot of talents. If you might have a baking show that I don't know about either. Okay.
If you guys are in LA, Sweet Lady Jane, it's about $8 a piece. When you butter them up and get to become friends with them, they might give you a buy one get one free from time to time. But while people hop on here, I want to go over your background because we were talking a bit before we went live about your background. I love everything you were saying. So if you don't know Ziggy, introduce yourself and then give us a little context as to you being in the hobby.
Sure. So thank you very much for having me on, and thank you to everybody in the chat. It's great to see a lot of familiar faces. So I really appreciate this opportunity. So my background, I'll give you kind of the nutshell. I got back into the hobby in 2015. Prior to that, I was one of those guys collected in the 80s and 90s. I thought I had a fortune in baseball cards. Turns out I had like nothing in baseball cards. 2015, I'm playing poker with a friend of mine, and he starts telling me about this box called National Treasures, and it costs $1,000. I'm like, BS. How's that happen? Next thing I know, like just knees deep in breaks and the hobby. And I'm one of those people who came in with my kids. My kids had been collecting Prism cards and Prestige cards on their own, and we just dove in. So I'd say 2016 was a fun year for us. We did a little bit of everything. We probably collected for the very first years, didn't sell a single card. And what's exciting is I have a memory kind of behind every one of the things I did. For example, the Panini hat I always wear, this came from Steel City Breaks. Okay, so back many, many years ago, you can probably still find this on their YouTube. My son's birthday was in August. I asked him to open a box of innovation for his birthday. He's a Warriors fan, Curry. I said, look, if there's any Warriors cards, call them out. Man, they pull a Steph Curry to 10 RPA. Or not RPA, I'm sorry. It's not his rookie year, but a patch auto, right, to 10 from innovation. My son just has a wonderful time. The guy's a really great guy. I buy the hat from him. So he sends me the hat. And this hat will remind me all the time of that wonderful break, right? So anyway, got into the hobby. Probably 2017 is when I started selling. I will sadly say I went through a divorce, and the divorce kind of triggered the selling. So I sold off my entire PC. That PC included cards from like Transcendent, from Innovation, from NT. I mean, I had been through it all. And after that, I kind of took a year where I was kind of pausing. My kids were still active in the hobby, and we did a lot of collecting in the Facebook community. Facebook was a great place because I met a lot of people. It was friendly. The breaks were cheaper. The community was very welcoming. As an example, my kids and I, back in 2017, we would go out and buy retail boxes. We chase retail. And there's another guy on the West Coast. This guy's named Racken. If you look for him on Facebook, he's got 2 girls on the West Coast, right? And we'd break boxes with each other. So I'd find some. If I found retail, I'd break for him at cost and just ship him the cards. He'd find for me, break, and ship to me. And we started doing that for more and more people. And again, this is 17 when it was exciting, but it was nothing like it was today. So fast forward, I have 4 boys. 2 of them are still active in the hobby, and where I am now is that I'm actively helping my boys navigate collecting and learning how to make money and learning how to do business in the hobby. And I say that in the sense that I'm not really a collector investor. I have a collector passion, but I don't personally have my own PC. It's really my son's PC. And I also try to balance my children's passion for the hobby, how they go after cards. You know, I try to monitor their hype. There's a lot of hype in the hobby. In fact, one thing I taught my sons this year, my oldest son took his money from Christmas last year. He bought a Prism box for $375, Prism hobby box, right? Which was super expensive for my 12-year-old, okay? His own money. He gets a Zion Williamson base card. He got a Jaw out of that base card. He got a Zion Red Ruby Wave out of that as well. A bunch of other cards. Now, he wanted to sell those immediately. I made him send those to PSA and wait, right? He just got his Zion back, sold that for $700. Do you know how excited he was as a 12-year-old? He said to me, Dad, thank you for teaching me patience, right? So it's stories like that I really love. That's why I'm in the hobby today. It's really for my kids and trying to share that with other people.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. A couple things. Steel City, I actually bought my first sealed wax today. 10 boxes. I'm not going to say what because I'm going to do a video. But if you watch all my videos, you get a hint. You'll get an idea for what kind of boxes I'm getting. But and yeah, like David, you said, dude, $700 as a 12-year-old. You're like thinking, well, do I want 1 car or do I want 2? I mean, will there be room for the helicopter pad, you know, in the mansion? That's insane. But coming back to sports cards, one of the biggest things I recognized was how much I learned about patience, hype, merit, understanding where people are spending their time and energy and money, and being able to say, okay, I see why they're doing that, but what's going to be next? Because I want to sell what's hot now. The mom jeans are in. I want to sell the mom jeans, but next time, the next fashion is going to be like ripped up jeans. So buy those now for $1 each and then sell them for $50. It's that kind of mindset that I realized, man, I picked up a lot of that just coming back and when I was a kid, and all the mistakes you made as well. So going back to 2016, 2015, you've obviously learned a ton. What are some of the mistakes you made along the way? And I want you to share that Patrick Mahomes RPA story as well.
So I'll tell you one of my best lessons learned. Okay, it was back in 2017. We were chasing football, right? And I had this strategy that Kareem Hunt was the player to go after. If you remember back in 2017, he was on fire, right? He was running all over the place. By midway point, the guy had like thousands of yards, or not thousands, but 1,000 yards, a lot of touchdowns. He was all set to be Rookie of the Year. So I'm buying his card up everywhere I can, roughly about 40 or 50 bucks, okay? And I had probably about 100 of these cards. I decided, this is the worst part, in October, I decided to send them to BGS to grade them, and I sent them in no guarantee. Oh boy, that was the first mistake. So I sent those in, but as I'm going through this, we were doing breaks. We're getting a lot of Patrick Mahomes cards, right? We were in a lot of breaks going after Kareem Hunt and getting Mahomes cards. And if I would get a Mahomes card, he was a popular quarterback at the time, nowhere near he is today because he wasn't playing that first year. I would sell him off, right? So I was in one break, which is an NT box break, and I hit a Mahomes RPA to 99 RPA. And the best thing about the story is I remember the breaker to this day. Her name's Crystal. She's on Facebook. She's still a friend of mine. It was the first break I think I did with her too, but she had a great price. I jumped in the break. She pulls a card. She's wowed as well because we both knew this is a big, any rookie quarterback NT card at the time was a good card, right? And I was in the break for maybe 80 bucks. The card was $1,000. I remember tipping her like, $50 or whatever to ship the card and gave her extra money because I was excited to get it. I knew I was going to make money. Card got to me and I had sold that card instantly, right? So I remember having one of the, that's the holy grail of Patrick Mahomes. Right now, the card's worth, I don't even want to look anymore. I don't look back.
Someone please look that up just to drop that.
Yeah, please
make
do.
up an absurd number.
There's no regret because 2 things. I made money off of it, right? And number 2, I made a friend off it. And I don't have regrets about it. I also will tell you that same year I bought the first off the line NT boxes, which at that time when first off the line came out, these things sat on the server. There was no rush, right? Like the NT boxes were there for a couple days. They were $500 for an NT box of football, by the way. That was suggested retail price in 2017. And I got 2 of those. And one of them had a Trubisky RPA in it, the 13, the Stars and Stripes. I sold that immediately for $2,000. Now, is that a $2,000 card today? You know, so it's those things. Like at the time, we were enjoying the hobby. We were, as everybody says today, you use the money basically to facilitate your hobby, right? I didn't have to put new money in the hobby. We were able to move that money from one investment to the other. Today, we're in an unusual world. And there's no wrongs right now. Everything's going up. You look
Except
back
project. Apparently, that's the only wrong.
Well, you know, even that, I still think that's going to have some future value. And my recommendation in Project 2020 is you shouldn't be buying aftermarket. If you're in that, you should be buying directly from Topps, because you can get a card for $17 that's going to be marked 2020. This is one of the most epic years in the history of mankind. You hold that card for a few years, there's no way it's not going to go up. Even that crappy Griffey card, right? If you can buy that for $6, I think it's going to be worth $12. I just still think there's opportunity.
You know, it's going to be very interesting. I would love to see cards of players with their mask on, with their COVID mask on. I would say 10 years from now, because now you're combining a time, an era of existence, of being alive in sports with that, or pictures with empty fans in the back, just empty stadiums. I think that would be 10 years from now, like a ridiculous investment from that point of view. But you mentioned something really important, which was you didn't have any regrets on the Patrick Mahomes RPA selling that. And I feel like you mentioned, most everything's going up. Money is getting duplicated every week, it seems. And so there's always this feeling of, all right, do I sell now for 2x or do I hold out for potentially 10x? Do you have any insight or any formula that you use for being able to know when you should sell, when it feels right?
So I'll tell you, my whole plan now is a system plan, right? And that's what I've told my boys. We work a system. The system is everything we buy that we're going to sell, we grade. And that grading gives us time to see the market react. Okay. And then while we're looking at that, we set a price then of what do we want to make out of the card. For example, if I'm buying Kobe White prisms right now at, I don't know, $20 a piece, I'm going to look show my boys, look, if we grade these and they come out 9s and 10s, here's what their current value is. Okay, today. So we're going to send them away for 6 months, expecting them to at least hold current value. Now in this market, that's easy, right? So now I look 6 months out, and I'm basically trying to time when these players will be playing again, right? Because it's going to be spring. You're looking at playoffs coming around, maybe April, April, May, March April, May, June next year. So I'm looking at timing. And again, we set our exit prices at the time now. So again, to me, and I won't say this, if it comes out next year that Kobe White's now going for $2,000 and we've written down we're going to sell them for $1,000, of course I'm not going to sell them for $1,000. I'll adjust to the new market, but I'm probably going to sell them for $1,700 because the market might be $2,000, but I can liquidate quickly at $1,700, and I can do it too, not on eBay, right? I do a lot of my selling to Facebook, and I'll be honest, I don't do much Instagram yet. I'm still learning. Most of my selling is Facebook because again, I can find a friend where I can sell them a card where I'm leaving meat on the bone. I get a transaction fees free. Right. And that to me is better. And I also build a relationship too.
Gotcha. I want to dive into your activity on Facebook, but I mean, I like the idea of the raw cards as well, buying you time, just because right now, man, selling any card now versus 2 months ago could be hundreds of thousands. I mean, not hundreds of thousands, but hundreds of dollars or 2x, 3x the price. Real quick, I want to say hi to Playmaker 88X, Richard and Reese Show, Harry Katz, Green Bay, the pack opener, David Hunter, Malone Money, Mindset, James Zakhodny, like Zach Odney, Zakhodny, Matt 14K, Goldburn, Boy Stern. I can't read because I'm not really good at this. This is a small screen. Brian Kingsley, Donald Schaefer, Quard, Currency, Daniel McPhee, Mike C, Mark from Maui. Thanks so much, guys. Personal Finance Dad, of course, James. There you are again, Zakhodny. Guys, if you don't have your cake, don't worry, I got plenty of it. I know you're just hopping on, some of you. Even Ziggy over there has cake. Very respectable, very respectable. See, your big plate makes the cake look even smaller. I got a big plate, but that's why I put it towards the corner so it looks even bigger. Anyway, so that's really fascinating with the grading side. And my question to you is, with Facebook, that's something I've not really explored too much. I stare at a screen way too much, but I know that there's a lot of money to be saved on transactions. It just seems like a scary territory to go into these groups. Who are these people? Of course, I want to sell my cards without paying ridiculous amount of fees, but can I really trust the people on the other end? And I feel like that's one of your expertise. That's something like more than perhaps most, like 99% of investors and collectors. So can you elaborate about how you go about that?
Well, I'll say, first of all, it's not something you do overnight. You can't go on Facebook tomorrow and line a bunch of cards and make a bunch of money. It doesn't work that way because it is a trusted community. You got to get in, you got to kind of give, you got to learn. Now, what I would say, someone like yourself, you actually have a public image. So if you came in and I said, hey, I know this person, I can vouch for you, that's going to help you in some of the communities. But again, it is an environment where you kind of invest and you get something out of it. In fact, when I first started, you notice I use the name Ziggyno. So my real name is Michael Ziggyno. Ziggyno, exactly right.
What?
So
that ruins everything.
I know. Well, I don't want to hide anything, but the Ziggyno, when I use that, I was conscious of the fact that a lot of people didn't know who the hell it was. Like, well, why is he using this fake name? Right? And I had to explain who I was. But the reason I did it was I wanted to have something unique. There's a lot of Michaels out there, but I wanted there to be one Ziggyno. So I had this in mind that I'm going to come in and build this reputation. So, for example, one of the first deals I did was with a guy who runs a basketball break and also was a admin to one of the showcase. It's a showcase basketball group. I did a deal with him where I traded some Kevin Durant's with him. And what happened in this deal, he didn't know me at all. And I understood that. So I said, look, I'm going to ship you the cards first. You wait to get them. When you get them, you send them to me. So sometimes you have to give that trust first. But from my side, I don't feel the risk. I can see this guy runs a break group. I can see he's an admin in a group. There's no risk from my side. So I sent him the cards first. Did a great job packaging them up. He sent me the cards back. After that, he gave me a great shout out, a vouch. He actually, in his group, they give pluses and minuses for your activity. Hey, I did this. Michael was great on shipping, whatever. So I started with that. And then I expanded that to the point where I'd have a guy, buy cards to me. Hey, Ziggy, I bought these cards. I graded them. They were in great shape. So I take great pride in building that reputation, right? About treating people the way that I would want to be treated. For example, in Facebook, there's a lot of lining or buying or selling of cards. I would ship a card to a person. I'll send them the tracking the next day. And then I often will follow up a few days later to say, hey, I see the card arrived. Did everything arrive? And is it okay? Most people never do that. Most people they send the card, they send the tracking information, they're done, right? So I would take that extra step. Other thing I did is I love, I have my own boys. So I like helping other people with kids. So I'd help people who couldn't get cards. I would run card breaks for other kids. So I built up a reputation. I built up trust. It got me to the place where now I admin in several groups. I'm in groups that are vouch only. Like I'm in a basketball group that is vouch only. It's not meant for everybody. We only bring people in we trust. But in that group, I know I can sell it line anything I want to. I'm not worried about that transaction at all. That group also gives me access, by the way, to dealers all over the world. Okay, the group has admins and people in Asia, Europe, which is giving me a global sense of the community. And that's what I love about Facebook is that you'll also find if it's Mojo Breaks, if it's Leighton, if it's Platinum, which are big names in the hobby, they all have a Facebook group. They all have what I refer to as an underground that goes to Facebook, right? They have a Facebook presence. And in that Facebook community, another thing I love is it self-regulates itself. Now, it's not perfect, guys. I've heard some complaints about the scammers group. Okay, I'm not going to say it's perfect, but there is a group out there that if some bad stuff goes down, they're going to post it. There are active members in the community. If they see a scammer in one group, I'll get as an admin, I'll get messages from other admins going, hey, this guy was just put on the scammers. He's been scamming people. He's using an alias or whatever. And it's that self-policing network. I don't know if that can exist in an Instagram world or a Discord world as well as it does in Facebook. I'll also say too, in the 5 years I've been in the hobby, I've watched, now this is the first year in my opinion where everybody's having a great time. I've watched guys come in and out of the hobby and go broke, where they come in and it's gambling to them. You'll see them just dropping a lot of money and they're in every break. And then you don't see that guy at all. He's gone. He just disappears, right? So you'll see that happen. And this is the first time not seeing that. So again, that Facebook community kind of keeps it, it's like a pulse of what's going on. I'll even say that what I'm doing now on YouTube started in Facebook. I started a group years ago that was simply information only, where I would just post information. I would post how-tos. I would share videos that I was working on. And it was just meant for anybody in the Facebook community to share. I've now taken that to the YouTube world where I want to kind of expand what I'm learning and make that something I can share with others.
You bring up a couple of good points. One is the more public you are, the more you have to lose in a way. Like I can't go into a group and then scam someone and feel like it's not going to come back when I have a channel. I mean, the dislike would be even higher. So it'd be like, I feel like that's the whole point with Facebook being a bit more transparent, because usually you're tied to some personal pictures and here's your work. And Discord, I'm like, all of you strike me as like what's it called? Like hackers, computer hackers on Discord. I'm like, who the hell are you people? You like a little avatar. I don't know what your name is. I don't know anything. And I'm just supposed to agree to send you something for $1,000. Facebook, okay, I see. And whether it's false or not, because I'm sure a scam artist can, here's my fake family, my fake dog, my fake job, all this. But there's some level of trust that I feel is on Facebook specifically. And I mean, YouTube, I feel like, look, when there's video attached, there's just a bit more rapport versus just text and no pictures, no video to piece it together. Like if I wanted to join Facebook groups, let's just say I said, all right, you know what, I want to give this a shot. I don't want to sell on eBay. I want to see what's out there on Facebook. Where do I start? I have my account. I'm on Facebook.com. What's the first way just to get my foot wet?
Sure. So let me first say, I'm going to tell you to start at Sports Card Investor. Now, let me first say I am not an employee of Sports Card Investor. Okay. I am a complete volunteer there.
Jeff's your brother, right?
Yeah. The reason I recommend Sports Card Investor, and I'll also give you some other sites. Okay. Like you can go to Anything Collectible Goes. It's a great site where you can learn and razz. But what you're going to find is a lot of the sites control their content because they're trying to sell. They've got a mission or a goal. What I liked about Sports Card Investor, and the reason I got involved there, is when Jeff launched the channel or launched the group, he allowed people to basically just talk and collaborate and share information. And first, I just started answering questions. He saw that and asked me and several other people who are kind of leaders in the Facebook world to moderate. After time, as the group grew, he asked me then to admin, and I admin. And what I will continue to do there is I encourage communication and sharing. So what we do in that group, I encourage you to share your businesses. I encourage you to share the breakers you use. I encourage you to share the channels you're on. I want that to be a community of sharing. And Jeff has always allowed us to do that. Jeff will always be promoting his Market Movers tool in there. That's going to happen. But I can tell you the members are not. You'll see me run a video with Market Movers or other members who will do that, but it's not anybody pushing Market Movers. So to me, it's a good place to start. You can come in there if you know nobody at all, and you can start by going to one of our announcements and looking at some of the breakers or some of the guys in there and start dealing with them, right? There's even groups in there that do PSA subs together. So if you're looking for a PSA sub, you can go in there. To me, it's a friendly environment. There are others as well. I just think they have a larger audience there, so you're getting a bigger breadth. I'd also say if you don't want to start at Sports Card Investor, start at whatever you're doing right now. Ask your local card store, do they have a Facebook group, right? I started with Jaspy's. I'll be honest. My first entrance in the Facebook world was with Jaspy's and Mojo Break. I'm a huge fan of both of those groups, and they have communities where they'd let you kind of share, hey, here are my hits. I'm trying to sell those in their little communities. So there's a lot of places you can start. You can also start by searching kind of, NT or MBA, look for an NBA group and start there. But what I'd say is remember the golden rule. Treat people the way you want to be treated. Understand, sarcasm isn't always appreciated in the Facebook world. So be mindful of things you say, and don't take offense so easily too. Start basic, start early. Start by doing some positive deals. Another thing I always encourage people on Facebook, look, if you're trying to sell a card for $500 because it's going for $500 on eBay, how about you sell it for $450? Because eBay is going to take 10% anyway, right? Yeah. So you're going to save the 10%, and the buyer is going to be looking at this like, oh, he's not trying to maximize the deal. Like I can see when a guy puts a comp up for $500 and then he puts his price up at $525, I'm thinking to myself, well, clearly you want to maximize your value. If you came in at $450, the card's going to sell and you're still going to make money. So again, look at that as a way to build your business. There's so many creative ways. Another thing, if you want to get into breaking, right? I know a lot of guys who start as breakers in Facebook and they build a community of trust up that way. I will be the first to say, I think there's too many breakers sometimes, but I also do support a lot of the new breakers. I encourage them. I'm always curious of seeing what's going on. I love to give, advice. I do a lot of advice things, but I like to try to share what I'm learning in the community.
Okay, I have a question about breaking, because that's nothing I've done before, but I know there's a lot of people that like doing breaks. I see Jason breaks over there. Thanks for finally joining me, Jason. I feel like I haven't talked to you in a month. Brian Kingsley, back after your internet dropped. What's up, Toa Hang? Who else do we have here? Mark, I still see you there. Okay, so let's just say this. You want to get into breaking and you want to make some money off of it because it's fun, it's great. From your perspective, being in this long, what are breakers doing right? The ones that are doing it right, what are they doing? And what are the ones that are struggling to get momentum or to do this more than they would like? Where do you see the biggest mistakes?
Well, I'd say there's nothing going wrong right now. Anybody can break. What kind of annoys me is that we complain about retail and there's no retail being available. A lot of that isn't being picked up by people who are going home and ripping it. It's by people who are going home and breaking it and charging the exorbitant amounts. And that's just going to continue to happen. Okay. I like what I refer to as the long-term stable breakers who have allocations, who then share that allocation with their community, right? One of the number one breakers, and I don't want to just say I don't pick the number one, but one of my favorites is Bargain Box Breaks. A guy named Pete. This guy started his break on his kitchen table years ago. He still runs this from home. He gets great allocations of product and he gives great prices. Okay. He has the best prices in every break all the time. Now his breaks fill instantly. It's very hard to get in his breaks. Big Breaks Basketball, I believe that's it. Big Breaks Basketball is another one. These are breakers who have long time allocations. They've been using the system for a long time. But there's also new breakers, right? I'll give you two new ones I use. Knuckle Breakers is a friend of mine out of New York who's been in the hobby for a long time, and he started getting some allocations and getting some retail, and he puts together breaks. Another guy that I love is Internationals. I think it's International Basketball Breaks, and forgive me for not knowing the exact name. A friend of mine, Juan's in Puerto Rico. So Juan started up an international break where he ships internationally for basketball people, right? He started very early a few years ago. And again, he provides that service of international shipping, right? So I like those things. And again, I'm very supportive. I try not to be too critical of anybody's break. What would bother me the most is when you don't follow the breaker rules. And what I mean by that is all cards have to be on the camera. You got to have the camera on all the time. Those things kind of irk me more than anything, right? But if you're honestly trying to do it from your kitchen or whatever, I'll support that. I'll get into a break. I like helping people. I like talking to people. I like meeting people. But I am a little, critical that I think everybody thinks they can break. In fact, I'll tell you an example. My son and I did Mosaic last year. We got two boxes of Mosaic, and we sold it in our Facebook group. We sold them for, I think they were selling for $50 or $60. We sold them for 40 to a friend of ours. And during that break, the power went out and we dropped the line, right? And we were open at one pack and there was a cool card. Oh, it's a yellow, and the power goes out, right? Camera came back on. I was talking to the guy and he was upset. He's like, look, man, I trust you, Ziggy, but how do I know there wasn't something good there? I said, look, man, I know if I was you, I'd feel the same way. I gave him all the cards and refunded all his money. And I said, it's the least I can do for you. I apologize on my side, but I want you to know it's my son and I have no intent, my goal. And he goes, I really appreciate that. And it's those little things I think that people need to think about, right? Think about if you're on the other side of a break, okay? How would you feel if the cards go off camera or if there's anything questionable about it? Another thing I don't like seeing is if you're in your own break, right? I don't think you should be in your own break. There's some people who think it's okay. A lot of the big breakers, they're not in their own breaks, right? There's like a fine line that they cross. I'll also tell you another thing. I have never spent more than $300 on any single card, but I have spent thousands of dollars getting into breaks. So I do think breaking has great potential, but it is a skill because it's so easy to become the guy who fills breaks, who chases teams you shouldn't be in, does random breaks, and you can waste a lot of money. If you do it with skill, if you have a plan, you can do it and make a lot of money in it.
Okay, all right, that brought up like 19 questions for me just because I don't know a damn thing about breaks. It sounds fun, but I didn't even know there was really a strategy to it. Obviously, there are different angles. But before I ask you that, I want to give a shout out to Fantasy Football Card Quest. Thanks for joining me in spite of your job, your kids, your wife. Glad you prioritized this over, important things in life. Let's see here. Big D McG 73. What's going on? We'll talk a bit about market movers just because that's something I'm new to, and I really want to be able to utilize that to point out deals and trends to share. Because honestly, I'm not going to be buying cards every day, every week, but I love the idea of finding deals for other people. So we'll talk a bit about that. JR Sports Card Chronicles, what's going on? Yeah, and that was a big question is breaking with skills. Like, let's just say you want to be an awesome breaker. You love this, but you got to show the cards. You got to be transparent. You got to offer a reasonable price. I mean, if you're starting anything, it's really, hey, I got to give so much because I don't have the reputation to charge the same as guys that have been doing this, or I don't have the same budget to have 18 cameras, but I got to make it work. what are some things that people can do, like the international shipping or other things that people can do to say, you know what, I don't have all these other pieces, but what can I offer that would get people to want to break with me besides the obvious?
So I'll tell you again, remember, and I think Mojo Break said this the other day on Hobby Hotline, breaking cards is only 5% of the job, okay? A lot of it is the sorting, it's the shipping, it's the customer service. There's a lot to it. So that's why I say, if anything, if you're interested in it, try it first, okay? Try it first. Maybe even ask a friend who's a breaker if you can break with them, because you can learn a lot. And I did that. I had a couple breakers who I actually went and did breaks with them just to get a sense. And I was like, you know what? This is more hassle than I ever want to deal with. That's why I'll say, understand there's a lot behind the scenes. People like to break because they make money. When I'm referring to breaking, I'm a breakie. I will buy into breaks with a strategy on how I can make money. Okay. And what I mean by that, and first of all, I want to say this: be cautious, because going into breaking is you have to understand what you're going after. This last year has been challenging, but I'll say the year before, I went after the Hawks in almost every break, the Atlanta Hawks, because I was going after Trey. Okay. And I focused on him, and I would go after the PYT breaks. I didn't do randoms. I would also go after multiple cases. If I was going after a case, and I'd also only go after specific products like Prism, like Select, like Optic. I didn't chase every product in 2019. Okay. So I would only go after certain products, and I would also go with an allocated budget. So when Prism came out, I might have a budget of say $2,000 allocate to breaks, and I'd want to be in as many cases of that break as I can, right? Because the more I can spread my value, the better chance I have is getting hits. And then the other part is I would keep all of my cards and grade them. I did not sell instantly. Okay, I have like 20 or something cards of trays that I'm still waiting to come back from one PSA order just from that experience 2 years ago. So if you do this properly, I kind of think it's like gardening. Okay, you're gonna go out and seed the garden. You're gonna water it. You're gonna harvest it. You're gonna can it. It's a process for breaking. If you're just in the break to chase the big card and flip the cards, you're going to be treading water, in my opinion, right? And even worse, if you start chasing random team allocations, or you just start filling breaks and buying teams that have no value, you're going to lose money. If you're in breaks, you should understand the checklist, right? Understand what the checklist is. And it's not just the cardboard connection checklist. Go to Group Break Checkers checklist, where they break down the hits. What's the hit count? What's the percentage? I used to run spreadsheets that would tell me what's the percentage that I'm going to hit, like when I was in football. What's the chance I'm going to hit a Dak Prescott rookie? Right, if I was going after the Cowboys. The Cowboys in that year were a great break because you got Ezekiel Elliott and you got Dak Prescott. That's why I went after the Chiefs as well the year after, because I was going after Kareem Hunt and I was going after Patrick Mahomes. So again, target breaks where you have a lot of hits in those potential, right? And then you can, again, get the value in time. Football, I sell quicker. I sell quicker than I normally do basketball. I would normally flip that, or basketball, I'd let mature. This year, I'm looking at football a lot differently, because it's just a whole new world. It's a whole new year.
Okay, so that's really interesting. And then, of course, with football, if you saw my last video, we just see wide receivers, running backs, even some tight ends just get a lot of attention because money wants to be dispersed beyond just quarterbacks. So this is really interesting from the breaking side. So you actually have a strategy where it looks like if you find a team that has multiple skill positions that have valuable cards, or players with valuable cards, you would target them first. Yep. Also tie that into, okay, if I get this graded, it might be a 6-month or 3-month, whatever turnaround. Where's that going to be in the calendar year? Because that'd be very interesting to say, all right, well, what about a break in February, March, April, get the cards, have them graded, return to football season, and now everything's going in the right direction, because even the hype before a season can be enough to have that window of opportunity to sell. So I'd love to learn more about how you use breaking in a very strategic way, because to me, I thought it was like, it's gambling, you're just having fun, and you're just choosing which team you're having fun with or whatever. I didn't know it went that far, so I thought that was really cool.
Well, again, if you look at
what's up, Bark? How's it going, man?
If you look at a team like the Pelicans, the Pelicans were very, very expensive this year. But if you were buying the Pelicans in Prism breaks this year, even if you spent $1,000 and you got every freaking Pelican in a case of Prism, you made a lot of money. At the time, that seems expensive. But again, if you're targeting the right teams, the right rookie teams, like Ja to me was probably a better target because the Grizzlies were cheaper than the Pelicans were. And that's why last year or the year before I was targeting the Hawks instead of the Mavericks, right? But and that's what I'll do again this year, right? I'm not going to target the top player. I'm probably going to target 2 or 3 players below and go after that team in every break I can. right? And I only do that in specific sports. Basketball, I'm wide. In football, I'm going to go after a quarterback, right? I'm going to go after a quarterback across the board. And in fact, I like the Packers guy, the Love dude, right? I'm a big fan of him, although I think everybody knows to go after him. So it's going to be interesting this year. There's no secrets anymore in the hobby, where you kind of had a perspective on how you go up to stuff. But I do like breaking. And like I said, I think that's the gambler in me, where I'll take a risk. Like the biggest break I got into, I think I spent a couple dollars on some Transcendent breaks back when it first came out. And Transcendent, if you follow, is a $25,000 box, right? And in that break, I hit the one of one Ken Griffey Jr. Sold that for a couple $1,000, made my money back on that. Also hit one of the baseballs in a Transcendent break one time, made money off that. So I've been lucky in those big breaks, but I like the rush of those. I like the excitement of the big breaks. I love NT basketball and football. Last year I would chase like lower teams. I wasn't chasing the bigger teams, but to me, it's still the gambler side of me.
Okay, so let me ask you something. If you were to cherry pick the same cards off of Facebook or eBay or whatever, does that make more sense? Or do you feel like with your strategy on breaking, you're making a similar return based on the luck of the draw and just how fine-tuned your strategy is and how you're able to enter breaks at a reasonable amount? Do you feel like, all right, I'm paying a bit more for breaks, but it's so much fun? Or you feel like actually when I do the numbers, it's pretty even if I just went after the cards?
Well, I'll tell you, here's the side of breaking I like. The breaking to me gives me the marketing exposure in the break and into the live channel. Hey, Ziggy's in. He's going after this. I'm very considerate. I cheer for other people. Everybody knows I'm there. So what I also do is I'll ask the breaker, hey, if somebody gets Zion cards and they want to sell the base cards, I'm going to pay $75. I'm paying $5 over list today. Please let anybody know if they win that team or they have that team. My point is I want to have a relationship there. So if you have a team and you want to unload those base cards real quickly or that card, I'll pay you over market value. I'm going to have the breaker hold it and ship it to me, not you have to get it and send it to me, right? Because then I already know the breaker. He's going to put it in my package, and I have it coming really packed fresh. When he's got his gloves on, there's less hands on it, less people touching it. So my breaking investment is also investment in my other strategies, which if I'm going to go after a player, I'll buy the base player. Another thing I've done too is I will pool with people, right? Back in the 2017, there were other friends that we would pool together our money and we'd go after breaks of Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes. So like if one of us saw an NT break, I could go fill it. And then my friends, I'd send them a message, hey, I'm in this break, and they would send me their portion. We trusted each other. We had a approved budget. So I could get more breaks for them, right? And we could expand that. This year, I did that with a couple guys where we went out and bought all the Optic Jaws and Zions we could back when that first was released. We had $2,000 each one of us put in. We had a pot of around $10,000. We bought as many as we could. And then we shipped those off for grading back in November, December. Now they're coming back 9s and 10s, and we're selling those off, right? So it's making those systems. To me, the break is a little bit of the gamble. It's also the investment and the marketing of, hey, who I am. I'm trusted. You're somebody I can buy from. Hey, Ziggy's buying. Like back in the day, everybody contacted me for Kareem Hunt. Ziggy's the idiot who's buying Kareem Hunt, right? So
yeah, I mean, I never thought of it that way, but it really is like when I spoke to you before, I said, I don't know if there's anyone that has their finger on the pulse of the hobby more than you, just because I feel like you're everywhere. Everyone knows who you are. You're on Facebook. You're on all the YouTube channels. You know all the content creators, or at least know of all of them. And I'm like, how does this guy get around? Like in a good way, not like slightly, like in a good way. But how are you all over the place like this? And I feel like perhaps your presence in breaking over the years has allowed you to be involved in so many different circles and groups. And that's what the one thing I mentioned to you before. I said, my perspective is very limited because I'm spending a lot of time on this. I'm watching only a few content creators, understanding where the hobby's at from their perspective. But from what you're seeing from a much grander scope, what do you see in the hobby that maybe it's not as portrayed as much as you would like, or not as, or just something that needs to be addressed more than it is currently based on everything that you know versus everything you're seeing is put out there?
Yeah, I'd say, first of all, I'm a father first. One of the reasons I love this hobby is because it's a way that I communicate with my sons. I'm a divorced father, and my sons don't live with me. So we use the hobby as a way to communicate, whether it's talking through Facebook or YouTube or whatever it is about what's going on in the hobby. We watch the same content, whatever. That's a bonding thing. And that's part of the reason I do this. I still do this as a hobby. I have a full-time job during the day. In the evening, I put on my bat cape and I just love the content. And part of it is I really passionately enjoy the hobby. I got very involved recently because as a father, my children started, they're big Fortnite players, and they subscribe to Fortnite, and they're on YouTube for Fortnite. And then they started following Mr. Beast, right? And then they started following content providers, and they started asking me to join this and do this. And I started going, where are they getting this information from? So I started looking out there, and I'll say I've always monitored what they're doing, but I started seeing it. And my impression was, and I'll even say this, if you look back to Jeff at Sports Card Investor, his first videos back in last year in October, November, I actually was kind of critical of some of the content he put out. I'd ask questions. What is your goal? What are you trying to hype? You know, I was kind of waiting for this foot to drop. Like, what are you trying to sell me? And even when he launched Market Movers in February, I was like, this is what you were trying to do all along, right? But what I did like about his model, and when I spoke to him and when I was involved with him in his Facebook group, is that his first goal is, you know, he's a father too. He's seen a way to make money off of monetizing a data tool, but he wants the hobby to be successful. He's trying to promote positive communities, positive environments, right? He's not for scamming. Like, one thing we talked about in his Facebook group was, look, I suggest you don't allow buying and selling. Let your group be simply about information. Don't let it be a platform for buying and selling. He thought about it, said, you know, Ziggy, that's actually a good point. Let's do that. So that's one thing, you know, he kind of listened to me at. So to go back to your thing about content providers, I got into this because I wanted to launch my own channel, and I think you have to research before you get in there. You should see what other people are doing so you can kind of figure out what your market was. I would say in the beginning, I tried to think, you know, do I want to be a sensational channel that talks about my top 5 cards, which I've done some videos on that, or do I want to talk about a cool break? I've done some of those as well because I want to just get people to watch. I would say as I've progressed, my goal on my Facebook channel is I want to have a voice to talk to people. And because of that, I want to stay independent. I know this might sound crazy because I do a lot with Sports Card Investor, but I also want to do stuff with other people, and I want to be an independent voice. That's why I do not participate in his affiliate program, right? I'm a big fan of his tool. I'll promote his tool. I'll use his tool. I'll also be critical to say, if you find something that's better out there, let me know. If you find a fault in his tool, let me know. I want to be an advocate for the community, right? I want to be a voice that people can come to and ask a trusted question to. And I want to do that in as much as an unbiased way as I can. I have, you and I talked about this. I support people who want to monetize. I think it's phenomenal. I understand. I don't have any interest in doing that. Right now, I really love this as a hobby, and I like giving back. In fact, one thing I want to mention that I didn't talk to you about before is that I've talked to some other hobby creators, and we were inspired by the events this last weekend. The virtual and Hobbypalooza both had some charity components to it. And we're looking at maybe putting together a content provider charity, right? Like, cards for charities. There's a lot going on right now where people need, and there's a lot of good stuff going on in the hobby. So I'm not going to drop any names, but some of the guys in the chat have already talked about this. I'm going to reach out to them, and I'm going to reach out to you as well. But it's things like that I want to see us promote, right? Education, giving back, sharing knowledge, doing things that are positive for the hobby, doing it because you really like doing it. One thing I also love seeing this weekend were kids in the hobby. Right, I saw this kid, Brody the Kid, breaking cards. There's these 2 boys, I think it's Elevate Sports Cards, they're brothers breaking cards. Those things to me are important. Like, that's the lifeblood of this hobby. It's just what makes me passionate.
You bring up a couple of points there, which are I want to touch on, which is, for one, whether it's me or any other content creator or Jeff, it's like we want the hobby to be great, because if not, we're spending a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of money into something that's going to deflate after a year or two. That would suck. That would suck from a very selfish standpoint. So if we're actually using our head, it's, hey, I want people to love this. I want them to find the fun of reconnecting with their childhood. Me, and if you see on their Fantasy Football Card Quest, he's probably back with his kids and wife now. But he's my best friend from like 12 years old. We have not communicated nearly to this degree as we have in the last couple months, over the last 20 years. It's like, I think when we were 16, we were talking this much. And now we're texting, sending video messages, doing Zoom calls for 2 to 3 hours, talking about market mover strategies and look at this trend. And what about this player, looking over Vegas odds, every little fun aspect. And I think that gets overlooked because with so much money being presented and we see record high prices of these cards and of boxes, that we forget that, man, this is a great outlet during these really tough times. I think to myself, man, life out there sucks. We got racism, we got disease, we got death, we got an economy that we don't know what's going to happen with. But here in this world, it's fun. We're kids again. And that's something that I want to make sure that I can hold on to and also pass on, because, you know, a lot of guys like yourself, Gary V, Jeff, you get into it because your kids draw you in, and it's a way to bond with your kids, a way to touch your childhood self and just have fun again. And when you can make money having fun, then I feel like you're onto something that's long-term.
Well, you're right. I have to say the relationships are amazing. And I think a lot of people can echo this. I mean, it's crazy how I can tell you I have better friends in the hobby than I do in my everyday life. Those guys that I would go to bat for in a heartbeat. If they told me they needed a liver, I'd see if I could give them half of mine, right? For example, this guy Rackin, he's been a great friend of mine. I've known this guy for years. He's just a great human being, right? Whether it's the hobby or not, I consider him family. Matt, who started Knuckle Bust Breakers, another great guy. These are guys, for example, if one of them calls me or sends me a text message, Ziggy, do you have $300 you could PayPal me right now? I don't even have to ask why. I know they found something in retail and I'm going to send it to them. You know what I'm saying? It's those type of relationships where you're just like, hey man, I got it. You need some money to buy some mosaic you found. Here you go. Send it back to me when you can. Those are relationships and friendships that, you know, are unlike anything else, right? If I ask my brother for money, he's going to say, what are you using it for? But in the hobby, you know, people just, they know each other, they trust each other. It's an amazing thing. And I think that is priceless. That's why, to me, it's the memories that I think are more important. Like the breaks to me, the cards to me are really reminders of a memory, right? When you open a card, like my son opening a box of Exquisite back in 2016, pulling a LeBron James out. At the time, that was a $500 box, right? That was just a birthday present. You'll see a theme there. He gets a lot of birthday presents, $500 boxes. That he pulled a card out that we sold to LeBron James, I think, for $500 a few, you know, later on. So we covered our costs. Today, that's $1,000 of cards right there. But it's the memory. It's his excitement when he opened that box when he was like 9 years old, opening $500 box. He was so excited. Those are memories that are priceless to me. Those are more important than the cards or the money.
Well, it's pretty cool when you can relive Christmas morning opening something that you could sell for a profit, so you could relive Christmas morning again.
It is.
I mean, I think that's what's cool about the hobbies, that there's just angles. It doesn't matter what you're drawn to. There's something there for everyone. And I personally, I hope to God the national is happening, because I'm looking for the person-to-person contact rather than just everything over Zoom or YouTube. But that feeling I got when I was a kid and I'd go to the local card show, and it was just shooting the shit with people about cards, and the same thing we're talking about, but just in person and being around that energy. So I don't know if that's going to happen this year. I don't know if you have any insight as to that, but I'd love to get into that.
What I heard was, and in fact, if you listen, I highly recommend the Hobby Hotline. There's a bunch of guys who are on this channel. One of the guys who's always involved is a gentleman named Rich Klein, who's very wired in the hobby. His last report he gave was that they're going to decide in October. That's the deadline. Part of this is you have to understand, I think the exhibitors had to put a deposit or had to make some commitment, and Atlantic Stage couldn't just release it, right? So they had to give them a makeup date. In October, they'll determine. I think right now it's probably less than 50% that it happens. It's kind of the buzz. I think everybody wants it to happen. I will be surprised if it does, just because of the way things are going. And I agree. To me, National isn't about buying or selling cards. To me, it's about talking and meeting the people. It really is. So I do encourage people, if you can, to go just for that aspect. And I think when it does finally happen, if it's December or if it's next July, we're going to be so starved for that, you know, that actual talking to people and seeing people. It's going to be a lot of fun. There's a lot of events out there. Panini does a party. I think Topps does a party. It's kind of like I go to Vegas a lot for Black Hat Conference, and I go to RSA. I'm a cyber geek. It's a lot like that. So you get a bunch of geeks together, you know, male-dominated industry, but it's a lot of fun, guys. I really encourage it.
Well, let me ask you something, because you're so well connected in the space and in different breaks. Do you have a local group over in DC, or is that something you've started or would think of starting? Because even on Facebook, I created one for LA. So if you're in Los Angeles, I forgot the link. I think it's Facebook groups / SoCal cards or something. But it was the idea of, well, I want something in person to trade cards, but also, man, a monthly meetup would be great. And the local card shop here, Bullpen, said they can't do it legally because of all the regulations till next year. So maybe if it's an outdoor space or something like that, it would be fine. But I was wondering if you guys, even in the comment section, if you know of any local ones in your area, or have you thought of starting one yourself, just so that you can get 10, 20, 30 people in a legal 6-foot radius or whatever to shoot the shit about cards and wear your sports jerseys, bring your collections and trade and buy and sell.
That's a great idea. It's funny. I've always been very active. I'm in the Northern Virginia area outside DC, which is the backyard of Blowout. Blowout's retail store is the Fantastic Store. So Blowout and Blowout Forms, distributor, right? They're local card stores where I go, and I know Andrew there. Andrew is a phenomenal guy. And back pre-COVID, he was putting together monthly trade nights, monthly exhibitor nights. They did last year. They did a poker where we all paid in for poker, and the winner got a box of hobby. I think it was a box of Prism. So it's no limit hold'em for Prism box, which is absolutely awesome. So I love that stuff they're doing. I haven't done anything recently, and I haven't really looked at it. I'll be honest. I've pretty much stayed isolated in my own little world. Northern Virginia, DC area's got a lot going on, but that's a great idea. I think that's phenomenal.
Well, I mean, also, if you're out there and you have, if you want to start doing breaks or you want to pick up business, why not just start the community yourself on Facebook or on Meetup? But I'd say Facebook's a more natural fit. And then just become the face of it and say, hey, if you're in the next 20-mile radius, I'm a breaker here in the area. Let's connect. I do my breaks every Saturday nights or whatever day or whatever it is, and start local, because I don't see the downfall. I feel like if there's a way to build rapport, it's build rapport with people in your neighborhood and your city first. It's a lot easier to trust someone that I know that, okay, I can track them down and break their leg because they're right there, rather than having to fly across the country. But we're at about 51 minutes. I want to talk a bit of strategy, because being in sports cards for so long and knowing so many different angles, what is your overall strategy now besides breaks? Like, if you're going after specific cards, what's your mindset right now, especially the way the hobby has changed?
Yep. So my boys and I use a budget system, right? We allocate an annual budget of what our goal is to spend, okay, on each product or each target we go after. Right now, and for example, last year I was very specific to basketball. We only went into certain basketball products. We didn't chase everything. As I'm looking at right now, we'll hit anything retail if we can find it, because I think there's value in retail. But right now, I'm actually looking at next year's draft class. We're looking at who we want to chase next year. I'm also trying to pre-order Prism right now. So if you can pre-order from your local card store, or you can see it on Blowout, I recommend buying it. It's going to be hard to get. Also, other products like Optic, I'm looking at those as well. When it comes to football, my boys and I have put together a budget for football as well. We've also, and that budget, what the goal is, we try to spend so much on buying product and so much on breaks and so much on individual cards. And we try to set up a system. We also, part of that is, as we acquire them, the guy I use to grade, I will send him cards every month. And he's sending in hundreds of cards every month. So I can send him 20, or I can send him 200. And he will sprinkle them in with his allocations as I need. So maybe he puts 10 in per week, or maybe he puts 100, whatever it is. So we will sprinkle in cards as well. Every month I send him cards that are graded. So that system is, we're investing money now. We're targeting things like, for football, I'm very interested in Mosaic. I think Mosaic, it's a first-year product, but because of the hype so far, I think it's going to do well. I think it will grade well. It's going to have the full NFL players on it. It looks like a sexy product. I also love Prism. I love Optic, right? So we're going to target those products. Contenders is a very expensive product. In Contenders, I recommend buying and holding sealed and selling sealed versus ripping it. Contenders, it can be a brutal rip. It's just, you can get a lot of garbage autographs in there. And we also try to target things like, we look at first off the line. I'm a little frustrated as a guy who's been using first off the line forever. It used to be first off the line was at suggested retail prices. So it was hard to get, but at least you had a shot. Now with these Dutch auction, I am a little more disgusted with it. I tried to buy off Panini's direct site the other day to get a box of Chronicles at $900, just so my boys and I could either flip it or do something with it. I couldn't even get to the server. So it is more challenging this year. But again, we try to, use a system and a plan and keep that system in place. Discipline. Don't chase products we don't know. I'll say this, I'm still not, myself, I'm not chasing running backs and wide receivers. It doesn't mean if I get them, I'm not going to sell them. It's just not the target card I'm going after.
Okay. Well, so I'm going after some wide receivers now. I like them. But anyway, and even Gronkowski is one of my favorites, but that's long term. That's because I feel like he's going to be the next Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson in a way. Like, he has that potential at least. Yeah. And in terms of Optic, one thing that crossed my mind is, or even just Donruss football, is how popular those Marvels set was for NBA. Do you feel like that's going to be the same trend in NFL, or do you feel like too many people are going to anticipate that, and so they're going to go the other way?
I expect it's going to blow up. Now, let me just give you a little insight, okay? A little hypothesis I have. And I shared this on my TikTok today, okay? The problem, I'll tell you this, I know why the card market is going to crash. I don't know when. The reason this market's going to eventually have a problem is because there's too much value in these inserts, these refractors, even the numbered cards. And what I mean by that, as someone who's been in the hobby a long time, back in 2015, the only value in a card was in the autograph or the relic. There was no value in other cards, okay? I have my son who was going through a bunch of Prism 2013 packs, and I have a video of this. He's ripping through the 2013 packs. He's excited when we get the Dellavedova Silver Prism Auto. That's a huge hit. He throws the Giannis, who's the Greek Freak, down on the pile because it's a base rookie card. The reason for that is manufacturers had to make products based on fixed value. They had to go out and acquire so many autographs and so many game-worn or player-worn material, and that constrained the value of the product. Okay? Today, and Prism's actually the fault of this, and it really starts in 2016 with Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons was the first player who's a major NBA player to not opt in with Panini for autographs. He went exclusive with Upper Deck, which meant if you were chasing Ben Simmons, the only card you could get of his that had value were non-autographed cards. His silver card became very popular that year. And a lot of traditional collectors laughed at that and said, this is foolish. The only value is in the autos and the relics. But that was the first time this happened. Now, what ended up happening in 2017, you have the same thing, the rise of the silver. Because by then, retail was at the point where if you got a Lonzo Ball, a Jason Tatum, or a Markelle Fultz, it's like finding a $100 bill in a box of product, right? So that just fed to the fire, and retail took off. So here we are now in 2020, and it's only gotten crazier. If you look at Prism, they'll tell you they make less product and they control the print run. But what they make is they make less product of value. There's less autographs, less relics, even less game-worn material than ever, and just more and more refractors. This is going to eventually cause a problem. Now, what I tell people is invest in autos and relics long-term. Everything else is just capital to move around right now. I don't think that's going to bust for years. I don't think it's going to happen for years, but eventually we're going to look back at this and go, this is really a piece of plastic. The value really is in those autographs, the relics, because those are rare. There's only so many jerseys. In fact, the first thing when I'm watching NBA today, I'm looking at those patches going, man, I want one of those patches that says like peace or Black Lives Matters. That to me, think of the value in those jerseys. Game-worn jerseys with those patches from the 2020, that is going to have huge value. No one's going to be coming back going looking at in my opinion, LeBron James and his Prism with his first Lakers jersey. I don't think that card is going to hold value, right? So yeah. And at the same time, I'm going to sell those. I'm going to grade them, right? And I tell my sons that, guys, we have to take all this lower value product and consolidate and upgrade, right? A lot of the good collectors will tell you that, right? They consolidate their products up. They'll sell off their refractors to get the silvers. They sell the silvers to the number. They sell the number to get the autos, right? And I still think that's the value in the hobby.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that, just because I always thought to myself, man, Kobe Bryant rookie card's going for so much. I'd much rather have a PSA certified autograph of him on a basketball. To me, that's better to display. He touched the ball. It's his signature, which we'll never have again. And you're telling me a card that he never touched, but it was just produced, is worth more than something he touched. That doesn't make sense. And so it's kind of like with cards, you're pretty much bringing the memorabilia aspect to it, because when we look at the card, it's the player, it's the memory, it's that feeling that we're drawn to. And of course, the scarcity. But, that's where I was like, should I just start investing in memorabilia? That'd be a Kobe jersey would be awesome to display, especially if it's certified through Beckett or PSA. And I know it's legit, because obviously memorabilia has its own flaws and scams and all that kind of stuff. But it's interesting you mentioned that, because the whole idea of this base card is selling for more, but doesn't even look that good. And there's a lot of them produced. And now I look at it as more of, okay, it's currency. It's currency to invest in the player, because the player doesn't actually have the stock. But we want to move that around while the player's hot, make some money, move it into something that means more to us or can pay the bills, or we go into a different player. So I love your perspective there. We're about an hour in. So I want to just ask you, is there anything else that you'd love to just share with us? Because you have so much wisdom being in the hobby and in so many facets for so long, especially for most of us new investors. Any big mistakes, big tips, anything that you really just feel like you want to get off your chest?
I'd say I'm always learning. I'm always learning. and I love to learn. I love people to share information. If you're out there listening and you've got a new channel, you've got an article you've written, something you've learned, share it with me. I'd love to share that in my daily updates. I'm really about sharing information. And again, I'm always learning. In fact, the other day I was talking, I've never used Beckett Marketplace. You talk about it all the time. Andy talks about it all the time. I've never used it. It's something I learned about through you guys. So I'm always learning. I love to learn. I love the hobby. And I really hope everybody out there is having fun. Remember, it's a hobby still for everybody. There's kids that are 12 playing this game. There's guys that are 70 playing this game. Treat everybody with like you want to be treated. You know, the golden rule.
Yeah, I feel like that's going to help all of us. You know, when we just respect the 12-year-old, respect the 7-year-old, whatever, if they're a collector, an investor, they just want to open packs, whatever it is, we got to make sure that we keep the hobby pure. Make sure that, yeah, money is an aspect of it, and it's bringing a lot of us in, and it's having us pay more attention to what's going on. But without a level of integrity, the hobby is screwed. And if it's screwed over for you in the DC area, it's going to be screwed for me here in LA and everyone in between, because we can't have this hobby be soiled by a handful of scammers or just people that are not doing it right. Because I want that 12-year-old kid to be interested in breaking open a box, and another 40-year-old guy to rekindle his childhood passion by getting into cards without ever saying, oh, it's just a bunch of scams and a bunch of like bad things going on. So with that, man, Ziggy, I really appreciate it. I want to thank all of you guys for hopping on. We didn't touch too much on the market mover. I feel like that's going to be something that we'll have to do another time, maybe with a screen share where we can really go over it, because I feel like finding trends and finding deals using data and using charts like that is something that would really benefit all of us, because now we could just become smarter investors. So if you're open to it, I'd love to have you back on.
Absolutely. We could do something, record it. You could put it out. I will say this. I'm a big fan of just education. It's research. Market movers to me just saves me time, right? You can do the same things with eBay. I'm a big fan of 130 Point. It's a free website. There's Cards. There's a lot of websites out there. A lot of us, I mean, I forget Andy, right, at the fantasy football. He does an amazing job with his spreadsheets, right? There's a lot of effort. I love that. I love when people share that information. If you're in Project 2020, there's a guy who has tons of Project 2020 information. So share information, do your research, ask people, and treat people like you want to be treated. Brad, thank you very, very much for having me on. I really appreciate it. This has been awesome. It's been a lot of fun.
Dude, you earned your cake. You earned your cake, and I didn't earn mine. I don't think I did much talking. I didn't really earn it, but you know, I listened pretty damn good. So guys, I hope you have some cheat meal there. Please follow Ziggy he's on TikTok, Instagram, here on YouTube, and of course on Facebook. The link is down below. I appreciate all your comments. I wish we can get to all of them, but we're going to have to come back and look over the comments and see what value we can offer you the most. So guys, have a great night. Thank you so much. Eat some cake for me. I got to piss. See ya.
See you later, Brad. Thank you.